Hey Deshaun, how are you? Oh, Deshaun, I'm sorry. How are you? I'll tell you what, tonight's going to be fun. Fun, 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 fun. It's a little something different. Got a bunch of emails, of course, but just want to talk about something different tonight. I'm doing very well, Deshaun. Thanks so much. We'll give it a little bit more time and then we'll get rolling. I'll tell you what, when I was putting this list together, hey Olivia, I was putting this list together, I was thinking, this is on both ends, this is a lot of good stuff. A lot of stuff that we talk about sometimes is fun and tongue-in-cheek and all this stuff like that. But today we're going to really get deep. Hey Brenda, hey Josie, hey Michelle, hey Brittany. A few more minutes. While we're waiting, let's tell you what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about why you're single tonight. The main thing is this. I want everybody to recognize that this isn't 100%, across the board going to cover everybody that I talk to or that watches this broadcast. It's not about putting anybody down or anything like that. It's just talking about reasons why, we may be having trouble sustaining relationships. So that's all we're going to talk about tonight. It's going to be fun. Get one more minute and then we'll get going. I got 5 reasons. 5 reasons. Make sure I don't lose this part. Value. Yeah. I took notes. Hey, Latanda. Took notes for this one because I did not want to didn't want to mess this one up at all. Hey Bonnie, let's do this. All right, so I'm glad everybody could join me. First of all, this is going to be Relationship Thursdays, where we're talking about why you might be single. Now, I have tips and reasons why, if you're having trouble sustaining a relationship or something like that, why you might be single. Now, here's my disclaimer. This isn't going to apply to everybody. I'm not saying every man or every woman that watches the show falls into one of these categories. I'm just going to talk about 4 reasons why some men and some women have trouble sustaining a relationship. So, ladies, we're going to start with you first. All right. Ladies, one reason why you might be single is because you suffer from something called the jester complex. The jester complex is when you want to be entertained, but you really don't want the responsibility of a relationship. Now, here's what I'm talking about. See, in the royal court, the queen and the king will have something called a jester that will come out and dance and clown around and do all this stuff to entertain them. And if the jester wasn't funny enough, the king or the queen could actually sentence the jester to death. Ladies, here's what I mean by the jester complex as it relates to potentially what happens with some women who are habitually single. You want someone around when you want them around, but you don't want the responsibility of having to maintain a relationship with them. So you'll keep it casual, or they might be in a different city or state or something like that. But the bottom line of it is, when you want to flip that switch, then you want to be entertained. When you don't want to be bothered, you turn that switch off and you send the jester on his way. And the jester is happy to be around you. The jester is happy to accept whatever role you'll give him, and he will work to entertain you because that's what he feels like he needs to do to stay in your good graces. Now, juxtapose that to a king. What a king will do is a king will push a queen, and a queen will likely push a king. They're working to expand the kingdom, but both of them come with responsibilities. You can't get a king to accept jester treatment. A king won't stand for it. Likewise, if a king tries to give a queen jester treatment, she won't stand for that either. So ladies, if you're having troubles keeping a guy or sustaining a long-term relationship with a guy that's a pretty good guy, well, maybe because you're dealing with the jester complex. You want to be entertained, but you don't want the responsibilities of a relationship. All right. Now, fellas, don't think I'm letting y'all off the hook. I want to talk to the fellas about a reason why some of us might be single. And again, this doesn't apply to every man out there. It's just something that I think is a good point. I had a conversation with a friend the other night, and we talked about the nice guy. And she explained it very eloquently when she said, it's not even about being nice. We don't like the bad boys because they're bad. We like the bad boys because they're confident. And there's something about their confidence that resonates within us. You can be nice, but that doesn't mean you're not confident. You can be very respectful and all that good stuff, but that doesn't mean that you can't be confident. And in order for, and this is this young lady speaking, in order for women to feel protected, to feel interested, to feel that deeper connection, they have to feel that we're confident enough to really lead them. She went on to illustrate another point. She was talking about horses and how horses won't follow someone who doesn't lead them confidently. A horse won't, follow you if you grab them by the tether or whatever it is, and you want them to go to the right, but you're hesitant. They have to sense confidence in you. And she said, not comparing women to animals, of course, she said that women have to have that feeling of confidence, like you got it. Like if anything pops off, you got it. So fellas, you can be nice all day long, but you have to be confident. Last thing she said that in talking about Russell Wilson and Ciara, I made the analogy that Ciara went and dealt with all these bad boys. And then she met a nice guy in Russell Wilson. And she decided that, okay, I've been treated bad enough, now I got a good guy. And she said, that's probably not it. Russell Wilson is an athlete. And who are some of the most confident people you'll ever run into? Athletes. So even though he's a nice guy, even though he's respectable and he carries himself in a very mannerable way, he plays football. On the football field, he's very competitive. And when it comes to that part of him, well, she basically said that he's probably one of the most confident men you ever meet. He just has a bunch of humility to go along with it. And it makes sense. So fellas, you can be a nice guy, but you still have to have confidence to attract a woman and to keep a woman. Okay, back to the ladies. Whew. Ladies, listen. There is a part of you that have had to do a whole lot of things on your own, and that's caused you to take on a lot of traditionally male roles, and in some instances to take on some masculine energy. Along the way, it seems like some women out there have lost the power of seduction. Now, when I say the power of seduction, I don't mean that you're trying to be seductive in a sexual way all the time. I mean that you have the power to draw a man into you just with your presence alone, just with the way that you walk, just with the way that you carry yourself, just with the way that you talk, the feminine energy that you give off. I mean that powerful presence. When a strong, confident woman walks in a room and she does so with purely feminine energy, it transforms the men around her. It transforms the women around her. It transforms the entire room. So what has happened is this. A lot of times, ladies, you focus on so many of the bad things that men do. Well, men can have more than one partner. How come women can't have it? Or men can do this. Why can't women do it? No, the men do it, so I do it and I'm bad. That's not what it's about, ladies. What it is about, it's about you embracing your feminine energy and really being in tune with your feminine energy and not worrying about some of the worst attributes and traits that men have. Just because men want to have 5 to 6 partners doesn't mean what we're doing makes us good people. You don't copy the worst habits that we men have. What you do is you allow that feminine energy to just grow and just expand until to the point where you're almost so radiant that no one can look at you and not be moved. And I don't mean moved in a sexual way, but I mean be affected just by the power of your presence. That's the power of seduction. Well, you don't have to say anything. You can just show up. And a guy knows better than to come at you with some lame line. A man will know better than approach you if he's not, first of all, confident enough, and second of all, worthy enough. You will ward off men that are beneath that level that you're on. So the power of seduction, ladies, that's something that you have to get back in touch with, because that is your femininity at its purest form. And again, it doesn't mean sexual. What it means is, it means that your feminine energy attracts only positive people to you. And that's just what it is. Fellas, our chase game is real strong. We see somebody we want, we go full steam ahead. We start sending flowers, expensive restaurants, cards, phone calls 2-3 times every hour, text messages, poems, all this stuff. We do all this stuff in the beginning. And we set the bar so high. And then we get weak when it comes to our sustaining game. We stop doing those things. And we truly think in our mind that the woman is going to be okay with that. And she's not. Don't ever do anything in the beginning that you can't sustain. Because first of all, it is unreasonable to expect a woman to be okay with half of anything that you give her. After you've given her everything, now all of a sudden you want her to accept half? Doesn't work like that. Just doesn't. What I need you to understand, fellas, is it's better to start off doing less than it is to start off doing more. So don't do a whole lot in the beginning. Don't spend a whole lot of money. Don't do fancy trips. Don't do fancy restaurants. Don't do anything. Keep everything simple, very simple in the beginning, and get to know that woman. I like to call it stalking like a panther. The thing that a panther will do, a panther will study and stalk its prey and move really, really, really quietly, very quiet. And then when the prey basically comes to the panther pounces, because the panther basically sets what I'll call a trap, and I mean this metaphorically now. So fellas, when you really get to know a woman and you are ready to sink your teeth into that woman, I don't mean literally now, unless she likes to be bitten. I mean when you're really ready to, pull her into the relationship and then begin to give her more, that's when you move. You don't give her everything up front. And women, you shouldn't give a man everything up front. What you should do is just take your time and keep it simple in the beginning. Because if you set the bar high, and you can't sustain it, shame on you. And don't expect a woman to settle for it, because she's not. And when she decides that this isn't working for her, that's on you. You shouldn't have overpromised and underdelivered. All right, so this last one, this is something that applies to both men and women. And it's about the value that we bring to a relationship. When I say value, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about house, cars, clothes, credit, none of that stuff. I'm talking about emotional value. In the relationship, everybody starts to fall into these roles. And one role that we can fall into is giver or taker. And we can alternate in those roles. Sometimes we have to be the giver. Sometimes we have to be the taker. But if we're constantly the taker in a relationship, we can become an emotional vampire. We can bankrupt someone with a happy, emotional state of mind. We can actually take that person's joy and suck it right out of them by being an emotional vampire. Emotional vampires, or anything that has a vampiric type trait, is something that takes from but doesn't give to. So, if you find that you're in a relationship with someone that's constantly take, and you're constantly giving, what you're actually doing is you're letting that person steal your joy. And emotionally, you can't afford to have someone steal your joy. You cannot afford it. This is what I mean by bringing value to the relationship. When you bring value to the relationship, you are making deposits into that person's emotional bank. The more deposits you make into that person's emotional bank, then the healthier the emotion that person has for you and can give back to you. That's just how it goes. But if you're constantly trying to go to your bank and make a withdrawal, the bank's going to do one or two things. They're going to say, hey, you have insufficient funds. In a relationship, you may have insufficient emotional funds with someone if you keep pulling from that person. If you keep taking. You have to give to the relationship. You have to. So, is the value that you're bringing to the relationship something that is a cost, or something that is going to be a take away from the relationship? It's going to take from the relationship? Is it going to deduct from the relationship? Or is it going to invest and deposit in the relationship? It has to be one or the other. If you don't bring the right level of emotional value to the relationship, whether you're a man or a woman, you're going to go in emotional bankruptcy in that relationship. And when you get into emotional bankruptcy, that relationship is done. I mean, it's just done. Okay, I don't care how nice that person is or how giving that person is. Everybody has their limits. And when you cash out or you have insufficient funds, there may not be enough of a deposit you can make because you're emotionally bankrupt. So those are some reasons, why men and women might be single. And I mean habitually single. I mean someone that can find a good person, but they can't keep a good person, or, they can't maintain or sustain the relationship. Those could be some things that are self-defeating prophecies within the relationship and within that person. I'm going to give you this last couple of things, then I'm going. I wanted to spotlight a couple that I know. And I like to do something called a relationship spotlight every now and then. This is to good friends of mine, Lorenzo and Mia Crime Moore. Mia Moore, I'm sorry. I should have known better, Mia. I apologize. They met at Morris Brown College, and they've been together ever since. I actually had a chance to talk to them about how they met. And they met in the marching band at Morris Brown College. I think it was 1987. Might have been 86. But the bottom line of it is, when Lorenzo saw her, he knew that was his wife. He knew that was going to be his wife. He told his father that was going to be his wife. He would take food from his house and bring it to the dormitory to make sure Mia had food to eat. And they've been married ever since. Now, I think it's over 20 years, easily over 20 years, that they've been married. Beautiful children, strong, involved husband. She's a strong, involved wife. They're both educators, and they are a very handsome couple. Not just physically, but as far as what they do to serve their church, their community, their alma mater, all that stuff. They are one of those types of couples that we need to see in our community. So when I talk about a couple that's in the spotlight, I'm highlighting people that I know have found a way to make it work. So here's the good news. March 25th, from 6 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m., I'm going to start a radio show on Instinct Radio. It's going to have 4 topics. It'll be a relationship conversation. In addition to the relationship conversation, it's going to be an entrepreneurial conversation. It's going to be a community conversation, and it's going to be a couple spotlight. And we're going to talk about those 4 segments, and we're going to talk about ways that we can just grow as a community. The ways that we can just keep things pushing and moving in the right direction, because we got a lot of work to do. And the work is something that only we can do. Nobody from the outside can do this. This is an internal mission that we have to take on ourselves. So the radio show, again, will be on Instinct Radio. Just be on the lookout, because in the next couple of days, I'm going to really start promoting the show and promoting what's going on. On the radio, I'm a little more off the chain, a little more colorful, for lack of a better way of putting it. But the radio show is all about fun. It's all about positive conversations, tough conversations, not just, the run-of-the-mill conversations. I want to have some folks on the show, and we're going to talk, and we're going to have some hard conversations, and at the end of that conversation, we're going to come to some type of agreement, some type of consensus or something. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about understanding each other's points of view, coming to an understanding, and growing together. So I hope you'll join me. Again, it'll be 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. March 25th will be the first show, but don't worry. Be a whole lot of advertising and promotion coming up about this show. All right, if you like what we're doing, don't hesitate to share this with your friends. Invite them back next week. Next week, we'll get back to some of the emails that we've talked about. I have one email in particular that I'll build around, and it talks about how this man basically left this woman on the bag with a massive bill. One of the worst case scenarios, someone who basically ran up somebody's credit. Very, very unfortunate. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the advice that I gave her, and some other emails as well. I really appreciate you guys joining me. And hey, Charlotte, tell your mother I said thank you. My mother's here with me. I'll make sure that she knows what she said. We'll tell your mother my mother said hi in advance. But that's it for tonight. So I'm looking forward to next week, and looking forward to the radio show. Oh, that's going to be off the chain. Off the chain. So that's it. Good night, Facebook.